Seated at my workstation, I was engulfed in memories spanning 30 years back to our nuptials, our honeymoon, and the most delightful times of my life. Reflecting on those cherished moments spent in Hawaii with Maggie fills me with a deep sense of nostalgia and gratitude. That period was extraordinary and magically captivating, holding a unique place in my heart. From the beginning, it felt as if we had entered a fantastical world that washed away all worldly worries, ushering in a peace beyond words. Walking side by side on the pristine shores of Waikiki, with gentle waves lapping at our feet, we were completely taken by the natural beauty around us. The fragrant scent of plumeria permeated the air, constantly reminding us of the love and tranquility enveloping us. However, it wasn't solely the stunning vistas that rendered our honeymoon unforgettable, but the adventures we embarked on together that became part of our essence. Exploring the lush rainforests and stumbling upon hidden waterfalls showcased nature's splendor. Together, we took in the majesty and allure that surrounded us. Our cliffside abode in Maui presented endless panoramic views, with each sunset transforming the sky into a kaleidoscope of colors, and in those moments of embrace, our hearts were filled with love and a commitment to each other. And the evenings were a symphony of romance, starting with a dinner by candlelight on the beach under a star-studded sky, savoring the delicate tastes of fresh seafood and local delicacies. But it was Maggie's tender look that rendered those nights truly magical. Hawaii became more than just a place. It evolved into the zenith of our love story, a narrative replete with cherished memories and shared dreams uniquely ours. Reflecting on our honeymoon, I treasure the profundity and beauty of our bond at that time. Hawaii served as a magnifier for our love, enriching our relationship and granting us unparalleled joy and calm. I embrace these treasured memories with sincere gratitude in this sanctuary of love. Now, 30 years on, as I was lost in these musings, my assistant stepped into my office, noticed me staring out the window, paused briefly, and then asked, "Jason, to whom or what do we attribute your recent mirth? Have you struck gold or something? Would you like to share?" At that moment, I became aware that I had been radiating happiness and upbeat energy for the past fortnight. I disclosed that my wife had been exceptionally considerate and loving lately, making me feel cherished and adored in ways I hadn't felt in many years. It felt akin to experiencing a second honeymoon, with an eagerness to spend more time with her, constantly on my mind. Over the last 2 weeks, I've called Maggie numerous times a day to listen to her voice and convey my affection and yearning. I acted like a smitten youth, and it didn't trouble me in the slightest. I was happy again and wished for it to persist indefinitely. Maggie and I have a profound connection, yet a 30-year partnership can occasionally dim and turn into monotony. Nevertheless, in these recent 2 weeks, Maggie turned playful, seeking closeness nearly every night and surprising me in ways she hadn't for a long while. I was convinced this change in her demeanor was nothing short of a rejuvenation of our marriage. Intent on surprising her with a romantic evening, I left work early, beaming. I purchased 24 roses from the florist, penning a sincere note on the card, then visited the liquor shop to get her favorite wine and a big box of her beloved chocolate-covered cherries. Tonight, my plan is to not just convey to Maggie my profound love for her and the happiness she adds to my life, but also to dazzle her with a 7-night cruise I've arranged for us to commemorate our union. Beaming with joy and springing forward with every move, I entered our house through the garage. Climbing the steps to the kitchen, instead of my dear wife Maggie welcoming me, it was Brandy, our 29-year-old daughter, who was seated at the kitchen counter. With a smile, I greeted her, gave her a kiss on the forehead, and cheerfully said hello. "Hey, darling, where's your mom?" They had shared a sincere talk 2 weeks earlier. "Brandy, I'm hesitant about this. I love your dad so much, and I'm afraid that by doing this I might hurt him." "Mom, Dad loves you too, and he'll get it. You've talked about wanting something more than what you've had before, and Dad, who's not getting younger, will surely understand your wishes and give you this special happiness." Brandy comforted her. "I just can't bring myself to tell your dad that I'm planning to see another man. I don't have the bravery," she confessed. "Let me deal with it. Alexander will be waiting for you at the cafe at 7 tonight, and you'll leave by 6. When Dad comes home, I'll explain everything, and you can have the experience you've been dreaming of," Brandy offered. Yes, I agreed to go, but now I'm filled with second thoughts. This seems wrong, and I shouldn't go ahead. How can I face your dad in the next 2 weeks, knowing I've agreed to meet another man?" she questioned. Brandy advised, "Maybe you don't have to tell him anything, but during these weeks, show him your love, make him feel secure, and once I've told him, he'll see that this adventure is not about love, but about exploring new friendships and having some fun. Connect with him deeply and make his world spin. After I've explained everything that night, he'll hold you close, knowing, believe me, Dad values you immensely and would do anything to see you happy. He's always been loving by granting your wishes." You might be right. It's just one evening, and it doesn't mean I'm leaving your dad for someone else. A night out for fun after 30 years seems harmless. I'll make it a point to remind your dad daily of his importance and how much I love him until the day comes. When I get back, I'll make him the happiest he's ever been. Just make sure he knows he's loved and appreciated. He's a great man who will let you have this chance. Now, I need to go make dinner for Mike. Take care, dear, and say hi to Mike for me. When are you going to give us grandchildren?" "Soon. We're planning to start trying in a couple of months," Brandy said before taking off. Maggie found herself alone in the art studio Jason had built for her in their backyard, in front of his latest masterpiece. Her creativity had been stifled lately by the guilt of considering time away with another man. However, inspired by Brandy's words, her brushes began to move freely over the canvas, creating vibrant scenes filled with feeling. In that moment, she was convinced that following this path was right for her, confident her husband would back her decision. Solitude brought her a quiet comfort, replacing her guilt with tranquility. Jason might be hurt at first, but I believe I can show him my true love. I treasure this man who has been a wonderful partner and father. My goal is to be the perfect wife and express my deep love for him. On the first night of my effort to shower him with affection, I wore his favorite baby doll nightgown after bathing, doing my hair and makeup. I welcomed Jason at the door, dressed in the nightgown and heels, and took him straight to the bedroom. There I undressed him, taking off his belt and pants. I surprised him with a gesture of love I hadn't shown in years, performed with passionate zeal. His smile brought me joy and satisfaction, making me question why I hadn't done this earlier. He held me tight, showing his love with a broad smile, saying this was the most wonderful welcome back in a long while. "What brought this on?" he asked. "I just wanted you to feel special and express my love." "Did you like it?" I did. "It's been so long. I forgot how much I missed it," he answered. I felt at peace. Pulling him to the bed, we shared a deep kiss, leading to the most fulfilling moment of intimacy we'd had in years. This led me to reconsider my upcoming plans with Alexander. In the next 2 weeks, the passion in our relationship reached unprecedented levels of excitement, and Jason became increasingly jovial, humorous, and loving. Feeling more joyful than before, I revisited my intentions for our special evening, even discussing with Brandy the newfound positivity, hinting that I might forego the planned escapade. "Mom, that's fantastic, but don't jump to decisions just yet. Let's watch how everything plays out over the coming weeks. Cherish your time together and make your choice afterward. It's wise to stay open to possibilities till the very end. Alexander will be understanding if you opt to back out," she counseled. "Maybe you have a point. Could you refresh my memory about Alexander?" I asked, aware he was her friend's father. "Of course, Mom. After his wife Mary was diagnosed with a terminal condition, he devoted every waking moment to her care until her demise. She was his other half, and following her death, he withdrew from society, rarely venturing outside or interacting with loved ones. Her loss created a gap he found impossible to bridge, resulting in years of isolation and quiet. When Mary and I encouraged him to start mingling and maybe start dating, again he felt disconnected, uncertain of how to engage with anyone but his late spouse, she elaborated. Learning about this extraordinary individual brought me to tears. Realizing we could potentially support one another, I told him about your lasting affection for Dad over the years and your commitment as his wife. I mentioned how our love life had become stable and Dad's vitality had lessened with time. We had thought about a date as a way to reinvigorate. ourselves, not in search of romance but for fellowship, with no thoughts of leaving Dad behind. Upon viewing your photograph, his expression lit up with a smile, and he wondered if I believed you'd be open to meeting him, Mr. Connor. I'm convinced that once I show Mum your picture and tell her about you, she'll be keen on the idea. Nonetheless, she's somewhat older than you. Is that going to be an issue? Not in the slightest if she appears as in the photo. I'd cherish spending time with her. What about your dad? Is he truly okay with her dating me? This is his spouse, after all. As I've mentioned, just leave that to me. Dad will go to great lengths to ensure Mum's happiness, as she needs it just as much as you. I believe you two can offer mutual support and forge a strong friendship. Trust me, and I will arrange everything. I'll speak to her, and if she consents, I'll pass along her contact to you. Then you can organize a date and enjoy an evening together. Evenings, what are you implying, Mr. Connor? Both of you are grown-ups who have your desires. Use your imagination to plan an evening and night together, so he finds you appealing and wishes to spend the night with you. If you're interested, I'll share your cell number. Ask him to reach out in the daytime. He's quite handsome, around a decade your junior, and I'm confident you'll be satisfied. He's just looking for companionship and a friend, and I believe you can provide that for one another. The following day, Alexander contacted Maggie, and during a delightful chat, he invited her to join him for the night as his companion. His compliments on her appearance in the photo and the excitement of dating made her feel youthful again, filled with the thrill of trying something novel. His flirtatious comments caused her excitement to surge. She accepted the date, looking forward to their meeting. He suggested picking her up, but she preferred to meet at the restaurant. Their text exchanges grew more flirtatious as the date approached. By the date night, Maggie's texts diverged significantly from those of a dedicated wife. She was continuously exhilarated, fantasizing about the upcoming events. She made an effort to remember Jason, pouring more enthusiasm into their intimate moments nightly. Now, Jason was all smiles, and Maggie was indulging in a desire that exceeded her most extravagant fantasies. I cherished my daughter immensely and saw her as the most radiant girl on earth. I took pride in the woman she had become. I wished for more time with her during her upbringing, but my hard work was to ensure a comfortable life, and I aimed to support her whenever possible. When I caught sight of her, my face lit up with a smile, yet I was baffled. "Sweetheart, why are you here, and where's your mother?" I inquired. She observed as I arranged 24 roses, a bottle of wine, and a box of chocolates. "I've planned a lovely surprise for your mum tonight, and I'm eager to witness her reaction." I delved into my coat and produced travel papers and tickets for a week-long cruise. "I'm whisking your mum away on a week-long voyage on the brand-new yacht Love, and I can't wait for her to discover. Keep it a secret when she arrives. I want it to be a revelation, her calling me." Daddy always brought a smile to my face, recalling her childhood moments on my knee. Yet now her eyes held tears, and she seemed to be overwhelmed with concern. Braced for unsettling news, I pressed, "Dad, we need to chat," as a tear escaped her eye. She saw my worried look. "What's amiss? Is your mother all right?" "Yes, Mum's fine. Please take a seat, and I'll tell you everything." I sat down, peering into her moist eyes. She hesitated. Then with difficulty she began, "Dad, you know how much Mum loves you, and she's told me how things have been great with you lately." "Yes, and I love her too. That's why I want to show my love for her." Now, witnessing her tears, I realized her message wasn't what she hoped to share. "I'm so sorry, Daddy, but Mom has a date." I sat in silence, hearing her words but unable to process them. As her tears flowed, my bewilderment turned to irritation. "Brandy, what are you saying? Where's your mother?" I asked, my voice rising in a way that startled her. "Mom loves you so much, Daddy, and this might be misunderstood, but she's out with another man and won't be back until tomorrow. She couldn't tell you herself, and I agreed to because she didn't want to cause you pain. Just one night and she'll be back tomorrow." "Is this a joke? You can't be serious. Your mother wouldn't do something to betray me like that. She was so loving, and we were so close." "I can't believe this. Dad, she loves you. She just needed to experience something." After 30 years, she felt confined, and wanted to explore life, just this once. Nothing will change except she'll love you even more for letting her have this moment. I looked at my daughter, Brandy. Why are you involved in this? Your mother shouldn't have involved you, and I should be discussing this with her, not you. How did you get caught up in this, Dad? Mom and I have always been very open, sharing everything. She confided that things had become monotonous with you, and that she felt neglected and craved some thrill. My friend's dad lost his wife years ago. He was devastated and sought company, and I sort of brought them together. I stood suddenly, knocking the chair over. What are you talking about? You introduced them and set up your mother on a date with another man. Is that what you're saying? Her eyes dropped in silence. Now, pacing the kitchen, I tried to make sense of the disaster. Damn it, Brandy, answer me, I demanded, towering over her. Did you arrange this? My wife, your mother, is out with your friend's dad, and you made it happen. Words flew from my mouth, tinged with anger. I'm so sorry, Daddy, but yes, it sounds awful that way, but I did it because I care for my friend's parents. What have you done? Care for your friend's parents? What about your care for me? Do you consider me a mere plaything to be set aside, expected to endure any fleeting impulse you or she might have? Where is she at this moment, and what did you imply by stating she would not be back until the next day? Dad, he took her out to a restaurant. I'm not certain which one, and afterward they intend to stay overnight just this once. She'll be back tomorrow. And Daddy, her heart belongs to you. She's been telling me repeatedly these past weeks how deeply she loves you, and her intention wasn't to cause you any pain. It's just one date, one single night. She believed you would understand and allow her this solitary event. So that's it? I'm to accept like an imbecile that her affectionate behavior in these last weeks was genuine, but now you're saying it was just her way of soothing her conscience? This certainly won't end well, that I can promise. Still sobbing, she implored, Dad, it's not what you think. She hasn't been deceiving or hurting you. She's gone to great lengths to show you her love. Daddy, can't you just give her this one night? You know she adores you and couldn't bear to be apart from you. She mentioned she's looking forward to my retirement, to us spending time with my grandchildren. Mike and I are thinking of having kids, and we really need both of you. Isn't that peculiar? That chance vanished the moment she decided to go out with someone else. Who is this guy? My friend Mary's dad. He's truly a nice person, and you'd like him, Dad. I think you have a lot in common. Really? We could be best friends, huh? You think I could befriend someone who knows he's with A? Married woman, my spouse? Maybe we can become buddies, share a few drinks, and I could lend him your mother on Saturdays. Is that your vision for me? Brandy collapsed into her chair, realizing the grave error in her judgment. She had never seen me so incensed, addressing her in such a tone. She recoiled from my fury, feeling a cold wave as she withdrew. Pacing back and forth, I finally settled down, turned to my daughter, and spoke with a bitter edge in a voice she no longer wished to hear. My pain and torment were palpable, rendering her feeling trivial and accountable for her role in the night's events. Listen closely, Brandy. I need you to leave now. I require solitude to process your and her decisions tonight. I do not want to see you or hear from you. Don't call me, don't text, nothing. Your treachery is unforgivable, and as of now I have no daughter. You are as good as dead to me. Do you understand? I am no longer your father, and I have no daughter. Leave my house and never reach out to me again. Brandy's tears flowed as she covered her face with her hands. Dad, please don't say that. I love you and I want to stay tonight. Mom and I planned for me to be here with you. We didn't want you to be alone, Brandy. The disrespect you've shown has made me doubt whether you ever had any real respect or love for me as your father. You bear a striking resemblance to your mother. Throughout all these years, I've labored endlessly to ensure you and your mother had everything you needed, and this is how you repay me. It seems I've been nothing more than a paycheck to you both, never truly earning your respect. Despite her tears and sobs, she insisted, Dad, I love you. Please don't talk like that. Wait for Mom. Let her explain everything when she gets back tomorrow. You've had 30 beautiful years together, and I know you love her deeply. Just give her this one thing, and she won't abandon you, Dad. She loves you. She might want one thing, two things, or even 1,000, but she will never have me again. I don't have forgiveness in me. Everyone involved will face consequences, including that man who dared to charm my wife, a married woman. Now leave. You've shown your true colors. You still have your mother. Nothing changes for you. You two deserve each other. As I've said before, Brandy, you are no longer my daughter in my heart. Now, leave. She fled the house, her tears streaming, experiencing a sorrow she'd never known before. She hadn't expected such a harsh response from her father. Had he really disowned her? For the first time, she realized she might have crossed a line by helping her mother with this scheme. She knew his love for them both, and now more than ever, she understood his rage. She desperately hoped for his forgiveness, and soon. After Brandy left, I tried calling Maggie on her cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. I left several messages begging her to contact me and come home. After a few drinks and still no reply, I sent a flurry of texts with the same plea, yet silence was all I got in return. By 2 a.m., it dawned on me that she wasn't coming back and was disregarding my attempts to reach out. Drained by my own sorrow, I just stared at the TV broadcasting more bad news. My life seemed to have plunged into a nightmare. I thought about our 30-year marriage, the happy times, our daughter's birth, all the celebrations, Bry's wedding, and the closeness we once had. Now it all appeared irretrievably lost to her betrayal. Even after her affair, we continued our physical relationship 2 to 3 times a week. It became routine and lost the initial spark, but we didn't complain. Usually, after being intimate, we'd hold each other and fall asleep. Not a day or conversation went by without us saying "I love you," and arguments were rare. Looking out the window, my eyes settled on the art studio I built for Maggie to pursue her artistry. She spent the better part of the last 20 years there, creating beautiful paintings and sculptures, earning many awards for her work, which filled the space I had made to display her achievements and art. It became a sanctuary for my wife's creativity, her personal retreat. In her heart, next to our daughter, that studio was her pride. To me, I was probably third in line, but my love for her made it bearable, as long as she was happy. The conversation with Brandy hit hard. The idea that she felt compelled to seek out another man blindsided me and was completely unexpected. It seemed that in all the years I spent working long hours for the benefit of my family, I missed the signs of her unhappiness with me or our marriage. Her choice to confide in Brandy instead of me felt like a slap in the face and fueled my anger. Reflecting on my life, my home, my future, I remembered that I inherited my property from my grandfather, owning it fully before marrying, with no mortgage. This realization, mixed with my inebriation and growing fury, prompted me to think of ways to cause Maggie as much pain as she had caused me. Today, as my gaze lingered on her studio, a sinister idea took hold, perhaps fueled by the sting of betrayal and the humiliation in front of my daughter, or maybe it was the alcohol. A new energy surged through me. I rose from the sofa, my sadness morphing into determination. I made several trips to our bedroom, collecting all of her belongings and transferring them to the studio. Her expensive shoes, dresses, lingerie, jewelry, and all her personal effects were now scattered on the floor of her prized sanctuary, the art studio. For the next hour, I scoured the house, gathering every photo album, including our wedding album, and added them to the growing pile. Then, remembering the items stored in the attic, I brought down her wedding dress, the baby clothes, and numerous sentimental mementos, piling them up until they stood over a meter high. It's remarkable how much one can accumulate over the years. I took down all her pictures from the walls, placing them and all her treasured possessions onto the heap. It was 5 a.m., and yet I was wired. I decided to give her until 6 a.m., giving her one last chance to come back, or at least answer my messages. If there was no word from her, or if she remained absent, I was ready to go through with my plan. I walked through the house again, making sure everything she valued and cared for was in the studio by 5:30. I fetched a 20-liter can of gasoline from the garage and went to the studio, bracing myself for 6 a.m. In that time, I went online, cancelled our joint credit cards, transferred money into individual accounts, took cash from our safe and packed several bags. I loaded them into my truck, knowing I had to stay clear of the house until a lawyer could sort things out. After an extra 5-minute wait for her, at 6:05, with all hope gone, I drenched the pile and the studio walls with gasoline. With a sinking heart and a moment's pause, I lit a match and tossed it onto the gasoline-soaked floor, igniting an immediate inferno. The fire caught quickly, and by the time I was leaving, flames were visible from the street. The blaze consumed her belongings and everything she cherished. Driving on the highway, a wave of profound grief washed over me, tears streaming down my face. It was then I realized that my once happy marriage had ended just like the studio. It was in ruins. Unexpectedly, the fire spread from the studio to the back porch, which also caught alight, including the art studio. Thankfully, the firefighters who responded to the studio blaze managed to extinguish the porch fire and save the house. The home suffered serious smoke damage and was uninhabitable until it could be repaired. Amidst all this, I checked into a motel some 90 miles from what was left of my marriage and paid with cash. I wanted to stay off the radar until I could think straight, aware that using credit would make it easy for the police to track me. I stayed up, running on adrenaline, until I got to my room. I switched off my phone and collapsed into bed, falling into a deep sleep and not waking until noon. The moment I powered on my phone, I was flooded with missed calls and texts from Brandy, Maggie, and the sheriff. After getting out of the Uber, I met Alexander at the restaurant, feeling a mix of nerves and excitement to see this handsome young man waiting for me at the entrance. He smiled as he saw me, dressed in an elegant black dress, sheer black tights, and matching high heels, his eyes drawn to my purposefully displayed cleavage, highlighted by my black bra. I had spent hours at the salon earlier, ensuring my hair and makeup were flawless. I intended for this night to be exciting, unforgettable, and perfect for him. My date seemed taken with how I looked, and his slight adjustment made his attraction obvious. My confidence soared, seeing that he liked my effort, and I met him with a gentle kiss. As he greeted me, we started at the bar, perched on the stools. Standing up, I caught him eyeing my legs, encased in nylon, trailing down to my lingerie. Both of us smiled as he ordered our drinks. I decided to switch off my mobile phone, committed to making sure nothing would interrupt our evening's pleasure. She knew such an occasion might not come again, and she was determined to cherish every moment. The attraction between us was undeniable, as if we were old friends. I found myself stroking his arm and engaging in light-hearted teasing, a departure from my usual behavior with others, including Jason. But tonight I was eager to explore the more daring part of myself and enjoy the adventure. As we finished our second drink, the friendly hostess notified us that our table was ready and showed us to our seats. The meal was exquisite, and I savored both the conversation and the company. When he suggested we extend our evening, I slipped off my heels and let my foot wander up his leg. He noticed my red-painted toenails through my sheer stockings, smiled, and hinted it was time to leave. Arm in arm, he led me to a hotel room he had booked in advance. As the elevator opened on the 14th floor, I thought about what I was about to do, with Jason briefly crossing my mind. He seemed to pick up on my reluctance and pulled me in closer. Looking up into his eyes, I was met with a kiss that was more intense than any I had experienced before. It was enough to sweep away any thoughts of my husband and my marriage vows. Once in the room, he wasted no time undressing me, and as my dress fell to the ground, he did the same. He praised my beauty, then carefully removed my lingerie and guided me onto the bed. The rest is a haze, but the warmth and gentleness of his touch made me crave more. I took the time to admire his body, which he clearly enjoyed. Caught up in the moment, he asked me to put my heels back on, finding them incredibly sexy. This added an element of excitement to our lovemaking. His frequent expert kisses made me briefly consider teaching Jason these skills, but such thoughts faded as he looked into my eyes and declared his love. His words touched me deeply, stirring something emotional and almost spiritual within me. Our bond grew stronger, leading to more love-making that night and again in the morning, each time as fervent as the last. It was the most fulfilling sexual experience of my life, and I felt at peace with my decision to give in to this indulgence. Waking up with thoughts of Jason and the implications they carried, I tried to focus on the man who held me close. As morning light crept through the curtains, he kissed me tenderly, reaffirming his feelings. Despite his love and an unforgettable evening, I gently reminded Alexander of my marriage, not allowing the idea of another such night. I recognized the joy we had shared and his potential as a partner, but I insisted on the uniqueness of our time together. He asked me to think it over, promising a future of happiness, but I could only promise to consider it. Our goodbye was intense, with a kiss that left me conflicted. If it weren't for Jason, Alexander would be an easy choice, but my commitment to my husband stood firm, along with a hope for his forgiveness. Leaving the hotel after breakfast, as he drove me back, I turned on my phone for the first time since the night before. I was shocked by the number of missed calls and messages. Reading Jason's text, a sting of guilt hit me. This good man was suffering, and I had not been there for him. Tears filled my eyes as I realized I was the source of his pain. Then, before I could check the next message, the phone rang just as Alexander was pulling into my neighborhood. "Mum, where have you been?" "Hi, darling. I'm almost back." "Mum, there's been a fire at the house. We've been trying to call you all night, but your phone seemed to be off." "A fire? Where is your dad?" "That's the problem, Mum. He's missing. Nobody can find him, and he isn't picking up his phone. I'm really worried." "Darling, I'm nearly home. I'll call you right back." As Alexander took the turn onto my block, I noticed a fire truck and police outside our place. Seeing no apparent damage to the front of the house, I asked the fireman about the situation. "Are you the owner of this property?" he asked, with all the neighbors watching me next to an unfamiliar but handsome man. "This is my friend. Yes, I'm Maggie Spencer." "Okay, Mrs. Spencer, we managed to save the structure, just the back deck was affected, but I'm afraid the house isn't safe to enter until it's been cleared of smoke. The worst of it is the small building out back. It's completely destroyed, I'm sorry to say." Feeling faint, Alexander steadied me and I sat down on the curb. "My studio, is it damaged?" "I'm sorry, Mrs. Spencer, there's nothing left but scorched debris. We'll try to figure out what caused the fire, but the police would like to speak with you now." I walked quickly to the back of the house, reaching the ruins of what was once my most treasured space before Sergeant Wilson could approach me. He caught up as I surveyed the remains of my sanctuary. I instantly suspected Jason might have done this in anger. "Mrs. Spencer, do you know anything about what happened here?" Sergeant Wilson asked. "I wasn't home last night, and I don't know anything." "Is this your husband?" he asked, looking at Alexander. "No, just a friend." My face burned with shame as the sergeant gave me a knowing look and asked about my husband's whereabouts. "I don't know," I said when he asked where I was the night before. I reluctantly admitted to being with Alexander at the Hilton downtown. The sergeant's and his partner's penetrating stares made me realize the seriousness of my situation. By admitting I wasn't with my husband, who was also missing, I had inadvertently cast suspicion on myself. The detective had questions. "Mrs. Spencer, are you and your husband separated? Do you know where he was last night?" "No, we're happily married." I realized how ridiculous that sounded after admitting I'd spent the night with another man. "Do you know where he is now?" "He's not answering." "We'll need to talk to him. Please give him my contact when you reach him," he said, handing me his card. I was shaking with both anger and fear. Anger at the loss of my retreat and the years of work I'd put into it, all gone in an instant. Fear at the thought that Jason could be so vengeful to do this and what it meant for our future. I needed to talk to him urgently. I called Brandy. "Brandy, have you seen your dad?" "No. I haven't heard from him since yesterday." "Why? Weren't you with him as we planned?" "Mom, he threw me out, saying I'm no longer his daughter." A chill ran through me. It seemed impossible Jason would say such a thing, and if he had, the situation was more serious than I had imagined. Walking into the house, the smoke damage to the walls and the terrible smell made it clear we couldn't stay there. I moved through the rooms, deciding to collect some clothes and essentials for the next few days. Upon entering the bedroom, a wave of panic hit me as I realized everything was gone. It dawned on me with horror that all my clothes, shoes, and personal belongings had vanished. Desperation took hold as I checked for my wedding rings on the nightstand, only to find them missing. Why did I leave my rings behind? What was I thinking if Jason had found them on the dresser? He must have thought I had abandoned him in our marriage. How careless and selfish I was frantically. I searched every corner of the house, only to confirm that all my items had been taken. A terrible thought struck me. Could he have actually burned everything? Was it all truly lost? I ran out to the studio to examine the ruins more closely. Among the ashes I found picture frames and remnants of clothing. Clearly, Jason had not taken my absence well. He had destroyed everything that mattered to me, erasing my presence from his life completely. In tears, I called Brandy, telling her about the disaster and that I needed a place to stay. Alexander immediately offered his place, but he was the last person I wanted to see. I insisted on being alone and asked him to go, which clearly hurt him. Alone, I let the tears come. I was filled with self-loathing and resentment towards the person I had spent the night with. I acknowledged my mistake, yet I blamed him unfairly, though the fault was mine alone. Brandy, I think I've lost your father. Mom, don't talk like that. Dad loves you. He burned everything, my clothes, my artwork, my studio. He's left me with nothing, not even a roof over my head. He won't answer my calls or texts. I've hurt him too much and I hold no grudge. What I did is unforgivable. I shouldn't have gone away. I should have talked to him. Maybe we could have fixed things, but my pride pushed him away. If the tables were turned, I don't think I could forgive him. What do I do now? I have no home or clothes, Mum. Don't be so hard on yourself. I'm to blame too. You can stay with us until your place is fixed up. We can go buy you new clothes this afternoon and get you settled by tonight, Brandy. All my artwork and sculptures are gone. 30 years of marriage and 20 years of my life's work gone, leaving me alone. I've lost my will to live. Maggie sobbed as neighbors watched from a distance. Oh my, your dad's calling. I'll call you back. In her rush to answer, she nearly collapsed. But in the nick of time, she managed to pick up. Jason, is that you? Hello, Maggie. How are you? Jason, where are you? Please come home. We need to talk. No, Maggie. I've heard everything from your daughter. Yes, your daughter, not mine. You both are dead to me, and this might as well be our last conversation. Jason, please don't say that. I love you. You must believe that. Jason, the studio is gone. Did you do this? Maggie, it's on you, not me. Maybe not by your hand, but it was your betrayal and infidelity that destroyed it. When I saw our wedding rings left behind and you with another, in my heart you ceased to exist. Your actions are inexcusable, and Bry's complicity is shameful and perplexing. This marks the conclusion. I will meet with lawyers on Monday to initiate the process. Jason, can we not talk this through and come to an understanding? You can't just throw away our 30 wonderful years together like that. Maggie, we are in the midst of this discussion, and it's not me who's throwing away our 30 wonderful years. It was your choice to deceive, to offer me 2 weeks of loving attention to ease your conscience, and then you betrayed me with your daughter's help. No one could ever look past or pardon such treachery and betrayal. It was sheer malice, and I trust you'll rue your actions for the remainder of your life. This is our last talk. You will get my attorney's contact information with the divorce documents. Farewell, Maggie. Jason, no, please wait. Jason had departed, and with him the world I cherished and valued. Brandy arrived as I tried to read our Jason, who had already ended the call. We hugged, crying for the loss we faced. Soon we realized we couldn't remain in the ruins of my former home. While the fire and police carried out their inquiries, we had to sort our lives, so we headed to Bry's place. Arriving at her house, she explained the entire ordeal to Mike, who was shocked by her narrative. Brandy tried to narrate the entire sequence, but when Mike learned his wife had set up an encounter with her friend's father for her mother, he was disgusted and became furious. Brandy, you facilitated a rendezvous for your mother with another man, knowing your father would be left in solitude. You should have known he wouldn't consent to it. What husband would allow his wife to meet another man? Is this what you envision for our future? Will you humiliate me as your mother has her husband? He was a remarkable man, and you and your mother were his world. What have you done, Brandy? I'll tell you. You've shattered a good man and pushed him to the brink. I can't express my disappointment in you, Brandy. I'll apologize to him for your indiscretion. After this is settled, you and I need a serious discussion about our future. The notion of having kids with you is on hold until I'm certain of your values. Let's be clear, I don't share them, and I won't tolerate such infidelity. She was stunned by his rage and surprised that he couldn't see her mother's situation. It was just one date after 30 years of marriage, after all. But she later realized that the core issue was her parents' broken marriage, the loss of her father, and the end of her mother's happiness. They would soon face the fallout of her actions. 5 days on, I revisited my house to assess the damage. I decided not to file an insurance claim to avoid extra financial burdens on top of the divorce. At the lawyers, I made it clear the house was mine and wouldn't be part of the divorce assets. Maggie could have half our savings but no spousal support. If she objected, I'd sue for adultery and publicly expose her affair with her daughter's friend's father. I had already consulted a lawyer and started divorce proceedings. Then I asked for a referral to a lawyer experienced in arson. But after talking to him, I understood that since the house was mine, criminal charges were unlikely unless I filed an insurance claim, which I had no intention of doing. At worst, the fire department might issue a fine, but criminal prosecution wouldn't happen unless there was a fraudulent claim. A neighbor, who knew Brandy from school, saw me return and go inside the house. Brandy quickly came to me while I was checking the destruction and figuring out what repairs were needed to make the house livable again. While surveying the damage, I looked out at the remnants of what was once Maggie's private haven and couldn't resist a smirk. When Brandy encountered me in one of the chambers, she hurried to me and held me close. "Dad, I'm deeply sorry. Please, can you forgive us? We love you," she implored. My reply was icy, "Brandy. Forgiveness is out of the question for both of you, and I've made it clear that you're to cease speaking to me. Now, respect my wishes and go away." Yet she insisted, "No, you're my dad, and forgiveness is necessary. I'm your only child, and your love for me is known." I countered, "Hear this, you're no longer my child. You're merely a liar who broke my heart. You're not my daughter any longer. Now please go." She pressed on, "Dad, Mom is in distress. She's staying with us and yearns for you. She's always in tears and desires to correct her wrong." My answer was unwavering, "I'll never pay a visit." The instant she chose to spend that evening elsewhere, our union was nullified. She left her rings on the table, signaling the demise of our marriage. "It's over, and I will not have further contact with her. You both can deal with my lawyer. I'm switching my phone and number today, so for the time being, you're better off staying with your disloyal mother." "Do you truly intend to throw away 30 years of matrimony?" she inquired. I explained, "No, it was your mother who tossed aside those 30 years when she took off those rings and departed. It was you both who ruined my 30 years of happiness, and for that I cannot forgive or forget. Now, leave my residence." Brandy left her family home in despair for the second instance, profoundly hurt by her father's rejection, an injury that no therapy could mend. The next day, Maggie was served with the divorce papers and was struck by the reality that her marriage was over due to her betrayal. She sought to mend things, pursued therapy, and attempted to reach out to Jason, but to no avail. He had cut off all ties with her and Brandy. Mike had a confrontation with Jason, voicing his disgust and disappointment at the women's deeds. He questioned his wish for offspring, reflecting on Brandy's loyalty and her involvement in the debacle, skeptical if he could ever commit to someone with such beliefs. He's now engaged in couples therapy, attempting to rescue his relationship. Maggie hoped to return to the residence after Jason repaired it, but the divorce decree affirmed the property as Jason's, not part of the settlement. She was obliged to find her own place to live. The court awarded her half of their joint savings and a monthly child support of $3,000 for a decade, which he had no plan to fulfill. Maggie had to find a job and provide for herself for the first time in 3 decades. She moved from her daughter's flat to a small studio downtown, securing a position at a boutique art gallery as a sales associate to sustain herself. Maggie's artistic liberty was now in jeopardy. She wouldn't be able to devote all her hours in the beautiful studio that Jason had built for her. She would miss the opportunity to sit before her canvases and enjoy the serene lake view from the large windows her husband had gifted her. Before long, she'd be swamped with work, using any free moment to piece together a life resembling her previous one. Her leisure and the comfortable, joyous life she knew, all vanished due to a single night's escapade with someone else. No amount of weeping could ever be sufficient. She would perpetually be without enough tears to cleanse the deep sorrow and pain her lone indiscretion had wrought. Indeed, her doting husband Jason would no longer speak to her. The knowledge that he had renounced their daughter shattered her heart. Brandy plummeted into a profound depression as her parents' union disintegrated. To navigate her grief and attempt to repair her own fracturing marriage, she turned to a psychotherapist. Several months later, once the house was restored, Jason consistently made the court-mandated support payments and, without warning, sold the house the day after he settled the sale. Maggie approached him, seeking to make amends and plead for forgiveness. Ringing the doorbell, she was greeted by a young couple. "Hi, can we help you?" asked the lady. "I'm looking for Jason Spencer." "Is he here?" Maggie inquired. "The nice gentleman who sold us the house?" "No. He said he was moving abroad to start over. He was very kind and helpful. Might you be Maggie?" "Yes, that's me. He left a package with instructions to pass it to you. Should you ever stop by, thank you. I will look at it later. Best wishes and enjoy this beautiful house." Sitting in her car, Maggie wept, realizing she would never see Jason again, lamenting the love she had carelessly thrown away. Alone in her apartment, she sat on her bed, hands trembling as she opened the letter. "Maggie, the 30 wonderful years we had, I will forever hold dear to the beautiful life we built. You were my first and only love, and I lament that I couldn't be the husband you needed. If only I had known you wanted more, I would have done anything for you. Yet you chose to walk your path alone, and thus our marriage ends alone. Those 2 weeks before your infidelity, I thought you had rekindled your love for me. They were the happiest of our years together." Learning from Brandy how you used those days to distract from your infidelity crushed my soul. You might know from your daughter, but I was so excited to come home that night to surprise you with a special evening planned with 24 roses, your favorite chocolates and wine. I was going to reveal a new voyage on our yacht, realizing your affection and respect were a facade, and your heart was set on another. I was humiliated. Well done, you've obliterated me and our marriage. Consequently, I can't stay in this city. I've left my job and am starting anew elsewhere. Do not seek me out, as I will be untraceable, and I have no wish to speak with you or Brandy ever again. This chapter is over for me, and I'll start fresh without you. It will take years to mend from the hurt and betrayal you've both caused. I couldn't remain in our cherished home without my soulmate and wonderful daughter, both now estranged from me. There's nothing keeping me here. I truly hope your affair was worth our marriage and my love. I believe it was, and I trust you and your daughter will relish the stories you create. Live happily and please expunge me and our time together from your memory, as I've done. My new beginning is here without you." As she read his words, she thought there were no more tears to shed, yet she found herself crying ceaselessly into the night, curled up tightly. The excitement and memories of her time with Alexander became distant echoes, now eclipsed by regret and grief. At 52, on her own, her life without Jason appeared bleak. She had traded her secure existence for a fleeting moment of reckless excitement. Jason tracked down Alexander late at night, just as he was preparing to leave for his new home in Ecuador. As the door opened, Jason stormed in, identifying himself as the husband of the woman Alexander had entangled with. Alexander tried to explain, indicating he thought Maggie was unattached to their tryst and wouldn't have pursued her if he suspected otherwise. But it was all in vain. Jason rejected every justification, channeling all the rage, fury, and pain he had bottled up over the past months towards the man he saw as an interloper. The confrontation was short-lived. Jason, armed with a crowbar, altered Alexander's life in an instant. Before making his way to the vehicle waiting to take him to the airport for Ecuador, Jason looked at the injured man, cautioning, "Getting involved with someone's wife can seriously impair your well-being." By the time Alexander was in the emergency room, narrating the ordeal to the authorities, Jason was already on his way to his new seaside residence in Manabí province, eager to begin anew, leaving his old life and kin behind. It took the police 2 weeks to determine that Jason had fled the nation, and they were unable to extradite him from Ecuador due to their laws regarding assault. Alexander spent a painful fortnight in the hospital, followed by a lengthy rehabilitation for his newly reconstructed knees. Unfortunately, the 25 stitches marking his visage would eternally remind him of that encounter. Uncertain of his future, he was sure his previous life was over, all because of the 2 women who had encouraged him to step into another man's marriage. He cut off all ties with Maggie and Brandy. Brandy's marriage to Mike nearly collapsed from the strain, but with therapy she came to terms with her role and committed to a faithful future with Mike. Mike waited 2 years to have children, needing assurance that Brandy wouldn't betray him as she had her father. Jason stayed true to his word, never reaching out to Brandy again. Her actions had irreversibly alienated her from her father's love. Learning of Alexander's beating, Maggie and Brandy were devastated, feeling responsible for the assault, amplifying their guilt and grief over the pain they caused Jason and the destruction of their family. This served as a stark reminder that their actions had consequences they hadn't foreseen. They realized that their naive hope for happiness, had Jason just once acquiesced to Maggie's wishes, was flawed. Their error ensured that a happy life was now unattainable. The void left by their father and husband caused them immeasurable pain, a burden they would carry forever. Maggie, battling depression and advancing years, never found another companion and lived a lonely, sorrowful life. Her visions of a joyful old age with Jason and their grandchildren faded to a mere memory. With Jason stopping child support after his departure, her finances quickly thinned, compelling her to continue working. Nightly tears became her norm. "I now have over $750,000 from the sale of my house, and the savings I've gathered over 3 decades minus the cost of my new apartment. With this wealth, I can live comfortably and tranquilly in Ecuador for another 30 years. The local young, beautiful women appreciate a generous American man, and I enjoy their presence." 6 months after that fateful night, I found myself on the beach in Puerto Lopez, opposite my apartment, sipping a cold beer and realizing that divorce is normal, separation is tolerable, and being alone is okay. What's not normal is staying where one isn't valued. I won't make that error again. Follow our channel to avoid the mistake of having an unfaithful partner, and do tune in for the next story, because what I've told you is nothing compared to what's to come. If you're under 18, steer clear of the next tale.